All right, so are you ready for Daredevil? Born Again on Disney Plus. You want to know what to expect? Well, let's dive in. We've got articles, fan theories, and even that wild new trailer to break down.
Yeah, it is quite a shift seeing this darker, grittier corner of the Marvel Universe landing on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
We're talking blind lawyer Matt Murdock back as Daredevil facing off against Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. But this time, Fisk is running for mayor of New York City.
Oh, yeah. The power dynamic here is insane. And this isn't just picking up where the Netflix show left off.
Right.
Not at all. Marvel Studios has made it clear that this is a revival, a fresh start. Although it is fascinating how they've taken a winding path with the production.
Winding.
Yeah, the initial plan was for a more episodic format, but after reviewing early footage, they decided to go all in on a serialized structure.
Oh, so they saw that it was good and said, let's make it even more Daredevil.
Exactly, leaning into that interconnected feel of the original Daredevil series.
Yeah.
And Charlie Cox is back as Murdock, and from his interviews, he's excited to explore new depths of the character. I did see that he mentioned doing some pretty intense MMA training.
Yeah.
To portray Murdock with a more diverse fighting style. Adapting to each opponent. Not just brawling, but real skill.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you wonder, what kind of enemies is he facing that require that level of preparation?
That's a great question. And speaking of formidable foes, Vincent D'Onofrio is back as Kingpin.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, and he's dropped hints that the storyline is going to be bigger and crazier than anything we've seen before.
Bigger and crazier than Kingpin running a criminal empire? What does that even look like?
I know, right? He's going to be controlling the city from City Hall.
From City Hall.
It's a bold move and one that has roots in the comics.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. There's a storyline where Fisk becomes mayor, leading to the Devil's Reign arc, where he essentially outlaws superheroes.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the city turning against Daredevil, the very people he's trying to protect.
Okay, that is some next-level villainy. But speaking of familiar faces, Daredevil's not alone in this raid. Foggy and Karen are back, too.
They are. Eldon Henson and Deborah Ann Wool are reprising their roles as Foggy Nelson and Karen Page. It's interesting, though, because initially the plan was to move on from the Netflix continuity almost entirely.
Really?
Yeah.
So what changed?
I think the creative team realized that those relationships are so crucial to Daredevil's story.
Makes sense.
They provide the grounding, the human connection that makes him more than just a vigilante.
Right.
But it raises questions, too.
Such as?
How much will those past experiences weigh on them now? What scars are they carrying?
Ooh, that's juicy. We know Punisher is back, too. And from that trailer, things are looking brutal. It's not your average Disney Plus show.
No, it's not. John Bernthal as the Punisher is an inspired choice.
Oh, yeah.
His brand of vigilante justice is so raw, so morally complex.
Morally complex is a good way to put it.
Yeah, and you're right. The trailer leans into the violence. Bone-crunching fights, blood splatters, a compound fracture that made me wince just watching it.
Oh, yeah, I saw that part. They're saying that the action is even more intense than the Netflix series. I'm almost scared to see what that means.
But it's not just Punisher bringing the heat. We've also got the introduction of White Tiger, played by the late Camar de los Reyes.
Yes. Hector Ayala, the original White Tiger. He draws his superhuman abilities from these ancient tiger amulets that are passed down through his family.
Right.
They grant him enhanced strength, speed, agility, even mystical senses.
And those amulets are at the center of some serious drama because leaked footage seems to show him getting gunned down, possibly by Punisher.
Now that raises some big questions. Will that tragic fate actually play out in the show? And if so, what happens to the White Tiger legacy? In the comics, his sister Eva Ayala eventually takes up the mantle. Could we see that happen here?
It's interesting how these leaked scenes are almost like mini cliffhangers. We're getting these glimpses into this world, but with just enough mystery to keep us guessing. Absolutely. And then there are the MCU connections sprinkled throughout the trailer. We saw the Rogers, the musical billboard from Hawkeye, an ad for Pim Van Dyne. These subtle nods that tie this story into the larger universe.
And the one that really got fans buzzing, a glimpse of Harlan's Paradise from Luke Cage.
Right. That one has everyone speculating, could Luke Cage himself make an appearance? It suggests that Daredevil, Born Again, is weaving itself into this street-level world of the MCU, possibly with some surprising crossovers.
I kind of love that it's walking this line between being a standalone story and connecting to larger MCU.
It's a delicate balance for sure, but if anyone can pull it off, it's Marvel Studios. They've shown that they can introduce new characters and stories while still weaving them into the existing tapestry. And don't forget the title Born Again. There are layers to that, both in the comics and for this show.
Okay, so unpack that for me. What does Born Again mean in this context?
Well, in the comics, Born Again is this iconic storyline where Daredevil is utterly broken physically and mentally. But through that struggle, he finds a kind of rebirth, a renewed sense of purpose.
So are we saying that this Disney Plus version is going to put Murdock through that same ringer?
Not necessarily a direct adaptation, but there are definitely parallels. Remember, this Daredevil has already been through a lot, both in the Netflix series and in his own personal life. Now he's stepping into a new world, a new MCU, and facing challenges that could break him all over again.
Right. He even mentions in the trailer a line was crossed. What line? Did he do something? Is it someone else's line? It's killing me.
That line is the big mystery, I think, the thread that will unravel throughout the season. And you've got Kingpin looming over everything. He's always been this master manipulator, but now as mayor, his power to influence and control is amplified tenfold. He can shape the narrative, turn public opinion against vigilantes against Daredevil.
So it becomes more than just a physical fight. It's a battle for Daredevil's reputation, for his very soul almost.
Exactly. And that's where that Devil's Reign connection becomes even more intriguing. That comic arc explores what happens when a powerful figure like Kingpin uses the law to target superheroes, making them the enemy. Imagine that happening here. Daredevil fighting not just criminals, but the very system he believes in.
Okay, my head is spinning. So we've got this intense psychological drama, the potential for a citywide crackdown on heroes. But what does it all mean? Why should we care so much?
Because this isn't just another superhero show with flashy fights or quippy one-liners. Daredevil, Born Again, is asking some hard questions about vigilantism, about the blurred lines between hero and villain, about the consequences of seeking justice outside the law.
So you're saying it's making us think, not just entertaining us.
Exactly. It's exploring the human cost of these battles, the toll it takes on these characters, the moral compromises they have to make, and it's doing it with a level of intensity and violence that frankly surprised me to see on Disney+.
Yeah, there is a grittiness to it that feels very true to the source material, to those dark corners of the Marvel universe.
It shows a trust in the audience, a willingness to push boundaries and tell a story that's not afraid to get dark. And speaking of the story, the production went through some major shakeups, didn't it?
The original showrunners were replaced by Dario Scartapane, who wrote for the Netflix Punisher series.
Yeah.
And then you've got Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead directing the duo behind Moon Knight and Loki Season 2. It's like they brought in the big guns.
Right. It speaks to Marvel Studios' commitment to getting this right, to making this the best Daredevil yet. And while those changes behind the scenes might make some fans nervous, I think it's a good thing. It suggests a willingness to adapt, to find the best way to tell this story.
You're saying change can be good, especially when you've got this level of talent involved. But those changes must have impacted the final product. What was kept from the original vision? What new elements were added? It's like a whole other layer of mystery.
And that's what makes this so fascinating. We're getting a show that's both familiar and brand new. They've kept the core of what made the Netflix series great, but they're also building something fresh, something that pushes the boundaries of what a Marvel show can be. And don't forget all the new characters they're introducing.
Oh, yeah. We talked about White Tiger, but there's also Heather, Glenn Kirsten McDuffie, a bunch of names that we don't know much about yet.
It's exciting, right? They're expanding this world, creating this rich tapestry of characters and relationships, and who knows, some of these new faces might even have ties to the wider MCU.
It's like they're building this whole new ecosystem around Daredevil, while still keeping him grounded in that grittier, street-level side of the MCU. Speaking of ecosystems, we can't forget the elephant in the room. This is a Marvel television production, right?
You're bringing up an important point. There was a time when those early Marvel shows like Agents of SHIELD felt a little disconnected from the movies, almost like they were happening in a separate universe.
Yeah, it was cool to see those characters on the small screen, but you never really got the sense that their stories were impacting the big screen events. But things have changed, haven't they?
Absolutely. Marvel Studios is taking a much more hands-on approach with their television series now. Shows like WandaVision, Loki, and Hawkeye have shown that these stories can be just as integral to the MCU as the films. And with Daredevil, Born Again, it feels like they're pushing that integration even further.
It's like they're breaking down the walls between television and film, creating a truly interconnected universe where every story matters.
Exactly. And that opens up so many possibilities. We could see Daredevil teaming up with Spider-Man in a future film, or Punisher showing up in another street-level Disney Plus series. The lines are blurring, and that's a good thing for fans who want to see a more cohesive MCU.
So are you saying that Daredevil Born Again is a sign of things to come? That Marvel Television is moving away from standalone stories and embracing a more interconnected approach?
I think it's a strong indication of that. And with the talent they've assembled for this show,
Yeah.
the writers, the directors, the cast, it's clear they're not pulling any punches. They're going all in on Daredevil, born again. And I think it has the potential to be a game changer for the MCU.
Okay, before we get carried away with all the what-ifs and fan theories, let's bring it back to Daredevil. Born again. This deep dive has been a wild ride, and I'm honestly even more pumped for the show now than I was before.
Me too.